There's a moment when Cincinnati tennis officials realized they might have a problem, but it wasn't because a superstar had pulled out, a final had been delayed, or a championship match had gone wrong. The problem was that too many people wanted to get inside the stadium, and the name creating the chaos belonged to a 21-year-old Filipina who had not even played her first point in Cincinnati yet. Alex Eala had arrived on the tournament entry list, and suddenly, something much bigger than tennis rankings was happening. Fans were searching for tickets before sunrise, demand was surging, and seats that had once been available for hundreds of dollars were suddenly being pushed toward $470. And then came the part that made this story truly extraordinary. The prices went up, but the demand didn't go down. The stadium was still selling out. Think about what that means. In professional sports, raising prices dramatically can kill demand. But with Eala, the opposite seemed to be happening. The more difficult the ticket became to obtain, the more valuable the opportunity to see her appeared. Cincinnati wasn't simply selling tennis anymore. It was selling a moment, an experience, and for thousands of Filipino fans, a chance to see one of their own on one of the biggest stages in the sport. And that is why the Cincinnati story may be much bigger than a ticket price increase. Because if the numbers and fan reactions surrounding Eala continue to grow, tennis may be witnessing the beginning of something it has rarely seen before, a player whose commercial power is expanding faster than her ranking. Before Alex Eala even stepped onto the Cincinnati court, the market had already started speaking. A package that had been around $275 was being listed at approximately $470, an increase of roughly 70%. And fans were still buying. That single comparison tells us more than a simple price chart ever could. Normally, tournaments depend on the biggest names, the biggest rounds, and the biggest matches to create maximum demand. A quarterfinal might be worth more than a first-round match. A semifinal might be worth more than a quarterfinal. A final is usually the crown jewel. But Eala's growing fan base has created a different kind of demand, one built around the player herself. Her opponent matters, the round matters, the result matters, but for many supporters, the most important question is much simpler. Is Alex playing? That phenomenon had already appeared in other tournaments. In Washington, ticket demand reportedly jumped sharply when Eala's matches were announced. In Toronto, the demand around her appearances became so intense that organizers had to place her on a larger court because the smaller grandstand could not comfortably handle the crowd interested in watching her. Now Cincinnati was facing its own version of the same problem. And this time, the setting was enormous. The Lindner Family Tennis Center had already undergone a massive transformation, backed by a reported $260 million investment designed to turn the Cincinnati Open into one of the most impressive tennis events in the United States. The tournament had expanded its grounds, added courts, upgraded player facilities, increased seating, and transformed the entire fan experience. This wasn't a small venue hoping for attention. This was a major American tennis event built to attract hundreds of thousands of spectators. In 2025, the tournament reportedly welcomed more than 285,000 fans, a new attendance record, and organizers had already been projecting another major increase in 2026. The goal was to move beyond 300,000 spectators. Then Alex Eala entered the picture. Suddenly, the question wasn't whether Cincinnati could attract tennis fans. The question was whether the tournament had enough seats for the people who wanted to see one particular player. And this is where the story becomes fascinating, because Alex Eala's rise cannot be explained simply by rankings. She has become a symbol for an enormous community that sees something in her career that goes far beyond tennis. She is a Filipina competing at the highest level of an international sport, and for millions of Filipinos living around the world, her matches have become moments of connection. People who may never have followed professional tennis closely are suddenly learning tournament schedules, checking draws, searching for tickets, watching highlights, and planning trips around her matches. That changes the economics completely. A traditional tennis fan might ask, who is playing? An Eala supporter often asks, when is Alex playing? That is a fundamentally different kind of loyalty. And the stories coming from her fans show just how powerful that loyalty has become. Some supporters have traveled hundreds of miles to watch her. One reported fan watched Eala in Toronto and then made an 8-hour drive towards Cincinnati because missing another opportunity was apparently not an option. Other fans have organized reunions around her matches, coordinating travel and schedules with friends who live in different parts of the United States. Imagine that for a moment. The tournament isn't simply being added to someone's weekend plans. The tournament becomes the reason the weekend exists. That is what happens when an athlete becomes culturally significant, and the money follows attention. If someone is willing to drive 8 hours, pay hundreds of dollars, rearrange a reunion, or travel across state lines just to watch a player compete, the value of that player's presence is no longer theoretical. It becomes measurable, and Cincinnati was measuring it in ticket demand. The resale market provided another glimpse of that demand, with Eala-related sessions reportedly reaching prices ranging from relatively affordable seats to several $100s depending on location and demand. Suddenly, a ticket wasn't simply a ticket. It was access to an event that a growing community desperately wanted to experience together. But perhaps the most important part of the story is that these fans aren't necessarily the audience tennis traditionally depended on. Some people attending Eala's matches had little history with the sport itself. Reports from earlier tournaments described Filipino supporters who were experiencing professional tennis for the first time because Eala gave them a reason to care. That is incredibly important for the WTA. Tennis has spent years trying to expand its audience, attract younger viewers, reach new markets, and create stronger connections between players and communities. Alex Eala may be accomplishing one of those goals simply by being herself. And even other players have noticed it. Coco Gauff has spoken positively about the new demographic Eala brings to women's tennis. That observation matters because this isn't just a fan theory anymore. The players themselves can see the difference in the atmosphere. When a section of the stadium begins filling with Philippine flags, when chants become louder, when supporters react with the energy normally associated with basketball or boxing, the entire environment changes. Suddenly, a tennis match feels like a national event. That atmosphere was visible in Toronto, where Eala's supporters created scenes that made the tournament feel almost like a home event for her. It was visible in Washington as well. And now Cincinnati had become the next test. Could that same energy survive in a market where ticket prices were climbing? Apparently, the answer was yes. But there is another reason Cincinnati is such an important chapter in the Eala story. The tournament itself had invested heavily in creating a modern tennis destination. Ben Navarro and the tournament leadership had made a huge commitment to the future of the event. The renovated Lindner Family Tennis Center was designed to be more than a collection of tennis courts. It was supposed to be an entertainment campus, with expanded seating, new player facilities, hospitality spaces, digital displays, recovery areas, and an entirely upgraded fan experience. The vision was simple: make Cincinnati impossible to ignore. And then Alex Eala arrived and gave that enormous new stage something no renovation could manufacture: a fan movement. Money can build stadiums. Money can add seats. Money can create beautiful facilities. But money cannot automatically create emotional attachment. Fans have to provide that. And Eala's supporters were doing exactly that. They were turning a tournament into an event. They were transforming a tennis match into a gathering place for a global Filipino community. That is why the reported jump from roughly $275 to $470 is more significant than the percentage itself. The real story isn't that Cincinnati raised prices. The real story is that demand apparently remained powerful after the increase. That's what businesses spend years trying to create: a product people value enough to pay more for. But there is a major question hiding underneath all of this. How much of this demand can actually be attributed to Alex Eala? And is it sustainable? Because one spectacular tournament doesn't automatically rewrite the economics of a sport. Fans can become excited during a breakout season and then disappear. A viral moment can create temporary demand. A deep run can generate attention that fades after the player loses. So Cincinnati becomes important because it adds another piece to a pattern that has already appeared in multiple cities. Washington, Toronto, Cincinnati. Different tournaments, different venues, different opponents. But the same basic phenomenon. When Alex Eala appears, Filipino fans appear with her. That consistency is what makes the story interesting to the business side of tennis. If the pattern continues across tournaments, then Eala's value cannot be measured only through wins, losses, rankings, or prize money. It has to be measured through attendance, merchandise, digital engagement, sponsorship interest, broadcast attention, and ticket demand. And that may be the most important change of all. Tennis has historically treated rankings as one of the clearest indicators of a player's value. Win more, climb higher, receive better seating, and become more marketable. But Alex Eala's rise suggests that athletic performance and commercial influence do not always move at exactly the same speed. A player can still be climbing the rankings while already generating enormous attention. She can still be chasing her biggest titles while becoming one of the most recognizable athletes to an entirely new audience. And when that happens, the traditional timeline changes. Sponsors don't necessarily have to wait for a Grand Slam trophy. Tournaments don't necessarily have to wait for a semi-final appearance. Fans don't necessarily have to wait for a championship. They simply want to see her. That is what makes the Eala effect so unusual. Her box office value is increasingly connected to identity. For Filipino fans, this isn't just another tennis player. It is representation. It is pride. It is seeing someone from their country competing against the best athletes in the world. For Filipinos living abroad, it can also be something even more personal. Thousands of miles away from home, they can walk into a tennis stadium carrying a Philippine flag and suddenly find themselves surrounded by people who understand exactly why the moment matters. The tournament becomes a temporary homeland. And that emotional connection is extremely difficult for traditional sports economics to measure. You can measure a ticket sale. You can measure attendance. You can measure merchandise revenue. But you cannot easily put a price on what it means for a family to see a young Filipina succeeding on a global stage. That emotional value is precisely why people can look at a $470 ticket and still decide it is worth it. They aren't buying 90 minutes of tennis. They're buying the memory. They're buying the photograph. They're buying the moment when Alex walks onto the court and thousands of Philippine flags rise around the stadium. They're buying the feeling of being there. And that is why the Cincinnati story may eventually be remembered as more than a ticketing story. It could become one of the early examples of a broader shift in women's tennis. The WTA needs stars who can bring new audiences into the sport. It needs athletes who can create communities rather than simply win matches. It needs players whose identity resonates beyond the traditional tennis audience. And Eala is proving that she can do exactly that. But there is one final twist. The most extraordinary part of the story may be that Alex Eala is still at the beginning. She has already created this level of attention without needing to win a Grand Slam title. She has already inspired fans to travel enormous distances. She has already helped fill major stadiums. She has already created demand strong enough to make tournament organizers rethink how they price and position her matches. And yet, she is still chasing the biggest achievements of her career. Imagine what happens if the player, who is already generating this kind of attention, begins regularly reaching the second week of Grand Slam tournaments. Imagine the demand if she reaches a semi-final. Imagine a major final with thousands of Filipino supporters trying to get tickets. And imagine what happens when sponsors realize that this audience isn't limited to one country. The Filipino diaspora stretches across North America, the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and beyond. That means Eala's audience travels with her. Every tournament becomes a potential gathering point. Every new city becomes another opportunity. And that is why Cincinnati matters. It isn't simply another tournament on the calendar. It is another piece of evidence that Alex Eala may be building something larger than a tennis career. She is building an audience. She is building a community. And increasingly, she is building economic demand. The stadium can be renovated. The seats can be expanded. The ticket prices can be adjusted. But none of those things matter without people willing to show up. In Cincinnati, people showed up. They kept buying. They kept traveling. And they kept proving that the value of Alex Eala cannot be understood by looking at a ranking beside her name. So when you hear that Cincinnati tickets reportedly moved from around $275 toward $470 and still attracted huge demand, Don't look at that number as just a price increase. Look at what it represents. A young athlete has reached a point where an entire community is willing to organize around her. A tournament built with a massive investment is discovering a new source of energy. And a sport that is constantly searching for its next generation of global stars may have found something even more valuable. A player capable of bringing people into tennis who weren't necessarily watching before. Alex Eala hasn't finished the story. She may not even be close to the most important chapter. But Cincinnati has already delivered a warning to the tennis world. The Eala effect is no longer something that happens after she wins. It is happening before she even steps onto the court. And if the stadium is already filling, the tickets are already climbing, and fans are already traveling hundreds of miles just for the chance to see her, then the biggest question isn't whether Alex Eala can create tennis history. The question is how much bigger this movement can become before the rest of the sport finally realizes what is happening. Because the next time Alex Eala walks into a tournament, the organizers won't just be asking who she might play. They may be asking something much more important. How many people are going to come just because Alex Eala is here? And if Cincinnati is any indication, the answer could be a lot more than anyone expected.